All right, so we got a ton of listener mail about this LNG Canada facility. It seems like a pretty big deal. What do you think? Should we dive in and see what's what?
Definitely a big deal. I mean, Canada's about to become a real player in the LNG export game.
And we know a lot of you are super curious about what that means, for Canada, but also globally. So let's get into it.
Sounds good.
Okay, so first up, we've got the arrival of this LNG tanker,
Mm-hmm.
the Moran Gas Roxana, expected to dock in Kitimat, British Columbia, around April 1st.
Right.
This seems to be the last piece of the puzzle before things really kick off.
Yeah, so that's when they start the cool down process. It's kind of like, well, imagine prepping an engine, for some really intense temperatures.
Oh, okay.
You can't just, throw it all in there at once. You got to cool everything down slowly and carefully before they introduce that super chilled natural gas.
Makes sense.
And this takes, well, about 3 to 4 weeks. It's crucial for a safe startup and to make sure everything runs smoothly.
Like a delicate dance.
Exactly.
Okay, so aiming for their first LNG cargo shipment by mid-2025. And once it's fully operational, the facility is expected to handle a massive 14 million metric tons of LNG every year.
Yeah, that's a huge amount. It puts Canada right up there with the big LNG exporters.
Yeah.
And, it's not just the amount. It's also the partners involved.
Right.
You got Shell, Petronas, Petrochina, Mitsubishi Corporation, Kogas. I mean, talk about a powerhouse lineup.
Yeah, each bringing their own expertise and, connections to the global markets. That's got to be key for LNG Canada, but also just for Canada breaking into that global scene.
For sure.
Okay, so you mentioned the cool down process, and we also saw that LNG Canada is trying to minimize natural gas flaring during this initial phase. Now, for those of us who, aren't quite up to speed on the technical stuff, can you tell us a little bit about flaring and why it's important to minimize it?
Sure. So flaring is basically a controlled burning of natural gas. It's often done for safety reasons or during startup procedures in these big oil and gas operations.
Okay.
And, LNG Canada's focus on minimizing this well, I think it shows they're committed to operating as efficiently and as cleanly as possible right from the get-go.
Got it.
So, environmental considerations are definitely on their minds.
Right, so this is not just about this one facility, right?
Right.
Our listeners are saying that once LNG Canada is up and running, we're probably going to see a shift in how much Canadian gas goes down to the United States. They've been our main customer for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Currently, the U.S. is the main market for our natural gas.
Yeah.
We send it down there through pipelines. In 2024, we actually exported 8.6 billion cubic feet per day to the U.S.
Wow.
Which is up, from the 8.0 BCFD in 2023 and the 7.5 BCFD average from 2018 to 2022. We even had a peak back in 2002 of 10.4 BCFD.
Mm-hmm.
But now, with LNG Canada coming online, Canadian energy producers, well, they have another big option.
Right.
They can now sell to these, international markets like in Asia and Europe, where the demand, is potentially much higher.
Yeah, so I guess the thinking is that those pipeline exports to the U.S. are going to decrease as Canadian firms start to take advantage of this new pathway to the global market.
That's the expectation.
And that could really shake up the existing energy trade dynamics we've had for so long.
There's a whole new landscape. What's really interesting here, though, is that Canada can now diversify its energy export strategy.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to rely on one major buyer anymore.
Right.
LNG Canada opens the door to a whole bunch of potential international partners.
Right, which is pretty exciting.
It is.
Yeah.
But it also brings up some questions, like how will Canada navigate these new dynamics as it becomes, a more prominent player in the global LNG scene?
Yeah, it's a whole new ballgame. So the big takeaway here is that Canada is about to undergo a major shift in its energy exports, becoming a real LNG exporter for the very first time. And this arrival of the Moran Gas Roxana, it's a clear sign that this change is imminent. It's likely to have a big impact on our long-standing energy relationship with the U.S. as well, as Canadian gas finds new markets overseas.
Absolutely. Canada's stepping onto the world stage when it comes to LNG.
It's pretty fascinating stuff. As you all process this, think about how this shift might not only affect global energy flows, but also what new partnerships and alliances might emerge as Canada establishes itself as a key player in the global LNG market. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.